Okay, it looks like we are live, and I'll welcome everybody to this regular council meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. Remind everyone to please disclose of any pecuniary interest at the appropriate time. We will go to the minutes of the previous council meeting of January 17th, 2022. We need a mover and a seconder to approve those minutes. That is moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Morris. Any questions, errors, or omissions? All in favor of those minutes being approved. That is carried. We will go on to scheduled meetings and events. I don't believe there's any changes to those meetings. So we'll move on to councillors' commitments and items. Does any councillors have any commitments that they would like to add to the list today? Then we will go around. Start with Councillor Morris for councillors' items.
Yeah, I've had a lot of phone calls, texts, emails, people on the street. They weren't happy about the 402. Our roads, like Zion, is just a mess. The extra traffic and the unsafe conditions that it caused by having the 402 shut was not good for our township.
No, it wasn't. No, just an update for council on that topic. I was hoping that the provincial government would have reached out to the blockade by today, but I called them and they had not listened to a lot of their concerns. We don't, as you all know, as municipal leaders, we don't have a lot of leverage when it comes to the provincial series highways, but I explained to the people who were blocking the 402, the problems that it was causing within our municipality, the safety risks that it was causing, and they have agreed to move all of their equipment off of the 402 as of today at 5 o'clock. So the 402, as far as I know, should be open. I believe, as Councillor Westgate said earlier, that they'll probably have to do some maintenance on that road since it's been shut down for a few days. So hopefully very soon the road will be open and able to be used, and they won't be using the detour anymore. Any other questions or comments on that? Councillor Mitchell, you are muted.
Just as of 5:45, it was still blocked, and police were still present at both on and off ramps. So just to bear in mind with that.
Perhaps staff can follow up with the police at some point just to see what's happening with the delay, but hopefully that will be opened up as soon as possible. Councillor White, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I have a comment. Like Wayne, I've received a number of emails and comments, about what's going on over the last 3 weeks in our country and in Ontario. I want to say as a councillor, I denounce all occupations in Ottawa at all of our border crossings and our own 402. I do commend our local law enforcement for keeping it safe, keeping our border open, and not allowing the occupation to snarl traffic and to allow trade to continue. And I do want to shout out to the real heroes that are still working out there, our healthcare workers that are still battling COVID. I don't understand why people don't see that that's still a concern. And I hope that those involved in those occupations are held accountable to the full extent of the law.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to add to that? Councillor Morris.
This is a little bit for Trevor, I guess. I've also had a lot of concerns from the ratepayers on the OPP presence. There was a lot of them. Is this going to cost us as a township on our charge, or is this spread across the province, a charge like this? There must have been a lot of overtime paid.
We'll be paying for it. It's going to be allocated based on region, and it'll be spread amongst the other municipalities in our region. So yes, it's going to cost.
I think the taxpayers need to know how much this blockade costs.
I will not know until probably late this year when I see the 2022 reconciliation, but I will forward at that time.
Thank you.
I agree with Wayne, and I think those costs have to be brought forward.
Thank you. Councillor Westgate.
I would just like to say if this happens again, maybe we should have a special council meeting and get on it quicker, because I didn't mind one day, but when it goes in to the weeks and the amount of money that was spent, that's way too long to be breaking the law. Like parking a tractor on the highway is breaking the law. It's okay to make a point, but not to break the law for so long and to cost us so much money.
That's a good suggestion. Councillor Mitchell, would you like to add to any of that?
Well, civil disobedience in our communities has a place, but it also has a consequence. And so having all of those points brought forward, I think is important. You know, our community deserves to feel safe and feel represented on all accounts. So it was disappointing to see. That's my personal thing.
Well, I appreciate you all voicing your opinions and making it clear. And I apologize if anything that I have done in the last week has impacted our council or our staff or our municipality. I do believe that I would not have even gotten my phone call answered had I not been understanding and empathetic to what's happening around our country. And I believe that we need to work really hard to try to find a bridge to this divide in our community and our families and in our country. So we're all going to work together. I know this council has always worked well together, and we're going to move forward from here. And we all have our own ways of leading, and we're doing the best we can. So I appreciate all of your comments and the fact that you have all made it very clear. Anything else, Councillor Morris?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor White, do you have anything else for the?
I just think it's poor politicians try to use it for their own political gain.
Pardon?
I think it'll be reflected in the minutes.
Councillor Westgate, do you have anything to add?
The only thing I had was Ivan Bryce, who looks after the medical center now. He was supposed to have sent a letter about better signage on the corner to let people know that the medical center is there. I didn't see anything there. Maybe it was too late, the letter coming in, or if we could do something about that now, or get something rolling.
Ms. Covels, do you want to speak to that?
So to date, Councillor Westgate, I don't believe that we've received such correspondence unless it came in today and I missed it.
He had told me it was sent, but we may not have got it yet. But is there anything we could do to get better signage at the corner there for the dentist and the medical center?
So Council will recall that there is a budgeted project for this year for wayfinding signage. So, and that could be included in that project should you wish. So it would direct to all amenities and business areas, the arena, but it is a bit of a ways off. I think there's still some work to do. The project hasn't started yet in earnest as our budget was just approved, but there's an opportunity absolutely to add in that as part of that project if council wished.
Fine. That's all I had.
Thank you. And Councillor Mitchell, do you have any items for council tonight?
Nothing more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The only other thing I had was I had a request for an area where people, like mothers, could sit down in the arena in the warm part. I know that there was some hesitancy to put out the chairs because of social distancing and stuff. Do we know what's happening when the chairs for the elevated warm part will be put out?
So we're still reviewing the operational plan for the next phase of reopening that starts on the 17th this week. For preliminary reviews indicate that that area will still be closed as non-spectator areas still have restrictions, or spectator areas still have restrictions. So we're still in review. But this specific nature of the request regarding, this is the breastfeeding one, right, Mayor Ramba?
Yes.
That you brought forward
Yep.
to me. So I have spoken with our operations staff and spoke to them about accommodations. And it's just, unfortunately, was an error in their understanding of what was permitted and what wasn't. So we'll absolutely complete some training to make sure that they understand and that we accommodate all those who are looking for that service at the arena, even within COVID restriction time.
That's great news. Thank you. As somebody who had little ones at the same time as I had skaters, it's difficult to do everything all at once. So it's great to hear that we are accommodating everyone. Okay, we were going to move on to staff items. 8A is a verbal update from Amanda Gubbles on the Municipal Modernization Program Intake 3.
Thank you, Mayor Ramba. So this letter is just providing approval, great for the municipality to receive this funding of just under $50,000 towards municipal modernization, specifically implementing digital modernization for records. So there is a related report on the agenda for future discussion, but I wanted to highlight the grant approval for us, which is great. Always great to have additional funding.
That is good news. And we'll go on to B, which is a verbal update from Ken Mallinson, Manager of Planning and Development Services at County of Lambton on delegated authority for streamlining planning. Good evening, Ken. I will turn it over to you for an update.
Good evening, your worship, members of council. Just before I do the verbal update, I wanted to take an opportunity actually to introduce council to a new member of the Warwick planning team. So joining us tonight is Karen Sander, who has joined the county as a planner who will be resourced full-time to Warwick. And I'm going to turn it over to Karen to give her introduction to you, council. So go ahead, Karen.
Hey, thanks, Ken. Can you hear me okay? My internet's clicking in and out. Okay. Hi, I'm in Port Lambton tonight, but I would really like to meet you in person in the near future. I've worked with many councils across Western Canada, small towns, small cities, and I'm a farm producer. So I think that'll be a nice fit to be working with your township. And yeah, I'm really glad to be in the area. I spent a lot of time in Saskatchewan and some time in Alberta, so in oil and gas. And hopefully my experiences through some of those boom and bust cycles and growth are of a benefit to the township. So thanks to all of you. Bye.
Well, on behalf of the township, we welcome you, Karen. As you are probably figuring out right now, we're seeing some booms, and hopefully we will see more of them as things get along. So your presence is very welcome at our table. Any questions for Karen or Ken tonight?
Well, if you'd like, your worship, I can go through a very, very abbreviated presentation related to the act changes, but I thank you for your indulgence to let me introduce Karen, and you'll be seeing her more and more throughout the coming months, and we're very pleased that she's been able to join us. It dawns on me, and I think this was an error on my part, that I didn't see in your agenda package the actual memo that I sent to Ms. Gubbles when I sent around the act changes. And I may have assumed that it was just going to this council, or it might have gone to a previous one. And I have it here, which I can quickly run through if that works for you. And I will do this very high level and very quickly. So if I could just get to my mouse, and actually, if Amanda could enable sharing the screen, that'd be awesome. Perfect. Thank you very much. So we will do that. that. So can you see this memo? Okay, great. So essentially, as I note in the memo, there were two bills that have made changes to the Planning Act that have now received royal assent. A couple of things to keep in mind is that some of these changes, as I quickly go through this memo, we've already operationalized. So there was a change related to consents. So some of you who are on Committee of Adjustment may have noticed that. I'll get to that in a second. So one of the changes has been that purchasers may make consent applications provided that purchase and sale agreements enable that. That was something you could not do before. Another change to consents is that they've now been granted for up to 2 years. So this is not a retroactive change. So what that means is that any consent application that was approved prior to this change remains on the 1 year, complete your conditions, and then you can get your consent filed, or it lapses. Anything from January 1st moving forward will be under a 2-year timeline. So you get an extra year. So there was a Committee of Adjustment application for a consent, I believe it was in January. That was actually an instance where an applicant couldn't meet their conditions and the consent expired. That was given a 2-year approval timeline because it was after the act change. One of the things that we will probably come back to you to discuss, and this was something I discussed not more than a half an hour ago with your colleagues in Plimpton, Wyoming, is changes to the act related to delegation of authority for decisions on minor zoning bylaw amendments and things like holding symbols and things like that. And essentially, this was a suggestion that was brought forward by the Ontario Professional Planners Institute to give staff the ability, if council so delegated, the ability to deal with these rather low-level planning applications that don't require significant bylaw amendments or are quite low risk. So for instance, an applicant clears their servicing conditions and they need to remove a holding symbol, for instance. That's relatively benign. It's not a public hearing of council. It's not appealable. So in theory, you could potentially delegate that to staff. I'm going to leave it at that at this point because I'm going to suggest that we let you as council review this memo and the attachments, which is from the minister, and give you some time to think about that idea and then return, because despite the fact we updated your official plan, in order to do this delegation, we would have to update your official plan. So hence why I'm suggesting that perhaps Ms. Gubbles and she may have already done this, circulate the memo to council. We'll come back and have a discussion about what options you might want to consider. Keep in mind, council, you don't have to delegate anything. Status quo can remain as well. But this is just an option for you if you want to try to unburden yourself from some of the things on your agenda. In terms, that's the wrong scroll thing. Here we go. In terms of one of the other changes to the act, there was changes related to lot mergers, but no, that doesn't solve the bigger problem of constant merging. It only solves it on the basis of when the lands are abutting and owned by joint tenants. So it only really solves the issue for a very small piece of the lot merger pie. When we found out about these changes, thought, oh, maybe they've actually done the big issue. Alas, they have not. And then the other big change relates to validation certificates, dealing with prior contraventions to subdivision controls. And that's a bit of a new process that we're working with other planning directors to come to an understanding on, because I can tell you that many of the other planning directors are also in the same boat going, we don't quite fully understand what the province is suggesting. So some of these changes are significant enough that we're all building the airplane as we fly. And so we're not ahead of anybody, but we're all in sort of the same boat. So I will leave it at that. you know, as I note in the memo, we've already started to operationalize the changes to severances. I'm happy to take your questions if there are any, but keep in mind that we will come back to talk about the delegation authority question and give you a couple of options. And remember that status quo is a perfectly acceptable option. So I will stop sharing my screen so you can see everyone. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Morris. Councillor Morris, you are muted.
There we go. Ken, this has nothing to do with your presentation, but all these acts and planning acts and official plans get a little confusing. Do we have in our official plan now, and is it passed, that surplus farm dwellings can be severed?
Through Your Worship, you created that process through the recent update to the official plan that has been adopted by your council and is now in effect because the county also adopted it and there were no appeals. Now, I will add, you are not the only municipality that has now added that in. Plimpton, Wyoming also did the same thing. So we're in the process of building the airplane as we fly, because this is a new process. So we're working to set up how that will operate for you guys and how applications can then be accepted.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I will thank you for your presentation, Ken, and we look forward to hearing more about that in the future.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'll be sticking around for the public hearing, and have a great meeting.
Perfect. We have about 8 minutes, so we're going to skip over the delegations and go to the accounts. We've got the GL report. We need a motion to receive and file that. Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Westgate. Any questions or concerns, errors, or anything you want to highlight for us, Mr. Jarrett?
We still have some late invoices trickling in, but for the most part, we've closed for the year. We will be doing our year-end journal entries, so the next iteration in March should hopefully be the final one for the year.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other questions, then, oh, Councillor Westgate.
Our expenses are way down. Are we going to have extra money at the end of the year?
We'll have a surplus, but as I say, we still have year-end entries to make to transfer funds that were basically transferred to and from reserves.
But we will probably have a surplus of some kind.
I'm anticipating a surplus, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor of receiving and filing that? That is carried. We'll move on to non-action correspondence. Is there anything anyone wants to highlight from that correspondence? Councillor Moore, Mitchell?
Number 02.07. I'd like to, if staff could, formulate a letter of support regarding that. You know, seeing that firsthand, it's imperative that those supports for survivors of sexual assault and assaults and things of that nature need to be addressed. It's a pain that can be felt through generations, and I think it's important. So, thank you.
Thank you for highlighting that. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Morris? Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All in favor of supporting that motion? That is carried. Is there any other correspondence anybody wants to highlight today? We need a motion to receive and file the remainder of the correspondence. Councillor White and Councillor Westgate, thank you. All in favor? That is carried. There's one item on the action correspondence, which is the Ministry of Finance letter regarding payment in lieu of taxes for federal properties. What would be an action to be taken from that correspondence, Ms. Gubbles? Maybe you can help us out.
Great question, Mayor. Council could send a letter of support and endorsement to AMO and to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing and the Minister of Finance.
Okay. Councillor Mitchell.
I'll move.
Okay, do we have a seconder to that motion? Councillor White, and any discussion? All in favor of supporting that? That is carried. Okay, I think we have some time. We'll go down to 13A from staff reports. We have an update on the records management and digital modernization. I think our staff did touch on that. We need a mover and a seconder to receive and file that information. Councillor Morris and Councillor White, any questions or concerns on that? All in favor? That is carried. We'll go down to the report on the municipal election, joint election compliance audit committee and delegated authority during lame duck. Need a mover and a seconder to receive and file that information report. Councillor Morris and Councillor Mitchell, are you laughing at lame duck?
Yeah, it just always blows me away.
I know. Any questions or comments on that report? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We'll go on to C, which is the East Lambton Community Complex Capital Fundraising Campaign Report from February 14th, 2022. We need a mover and a seconder to approve the report. Councillor White and Councillor Westgate. Any questions or comments on that report? Councillor Morris.
I really like what they're doing by putting the profile up on each participant on the Facebook. That is absolutely a super idea, whoever came up with that. Thank you.
We have a terrific staff team that is backing those that fundraising, and an absolutely amazing committee of people that are out there. They're just unbelievable. So we're very fortunate to have that fundraising committee, and our I must say our leaders, Rhonda and George, are doing a fantastic job as well. All in favor of receiving and filing that report if there's no other comments. That is carried. 2 minutes. Do we have time, do you think, for the complex construction project reports? We need a mover and a seconder to approve that report. Councillor Westgate and Councillor White, thank you. Questions or comments on that report? Anything that staff would like to highlight for us tonight? It's moving along. It's very exciting. I drove by the other day and there was some beautiful windows in the front. It's starting to look like a building, so it's very exciting. And if we are good, we can get through the gravel tender. We need a mover and a seconder to approve that. Moved by Councillor White, or sorry, Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor White. Any questions or comments on that? Councillor Westgate.
Where are these people from?
I don't recognize them.
They're from South Huron. They're the same people that did it our last year's.
They're the same people that did last year's?
Exact same contractor. Yep.
Because I was just wondering, for a cent a ton, to use somebody that's not in our community, but the next one was.
I
But
had the
they did a
exact
good
same
job for us last year, and they did it last year. I just didn't recognize the name.
And we were happy with the results from last year. The roads looked great, so. Did we get a mover and a seconder on that? Just remind me. Yes, okay. Any other questions on that report? All in favor of accepting that tender? That is carried, thank you. And it is 6:30, so council, we are gonna go up to our delegations. And the first one is a zoning amendment application for 791 Industrial Drive. Amanda?
Mayor Rumbos, I will just note we have some members of the public and the applicants in the waiting room, and I'll just let them in now.
Okay. I will give you a moment or two to let everyone in. Just let me know when we're ready and I'll read the zoning procedure.
We have 3 joining us. It looks like they're just connecting to audio. I think they're in, Mayor Rumbos.
Fantastic. Good evening, Colin and Jen. Great to see you. I'm going to get the meeting started and I will announce that the next item on council's agenda is the holding of the public meeting with respect to an application to amend the zoning bylaw and council's consideration of a bylaw to amend Warwick's zoning bylaw 121 of 2012 on lands described as concession 4 SER part lot 19 RP 25R11132, known municipally as 7921 Industrial Drive in the Township of Warwick. The purpose of the bylaw amendment is to rezone the subject land from mixed commercial industrial to mixed commercial industrial CM9 in order to add a motor vehicle washing establishment to the list of permitted uses and to establish parking requirements specific to the proposed development. Ms. Gubbles, can you please give us the method of giving public notice of the meeting and the date that notice was given?
Mayor Rumbos, notice was provided by regular mail and posted on the property. And I'm sorry, I don't have the date handy, but I will get it and put it in the minutes. My apologies.
No problem.
January 26th. Heather just saved the day. January 26th. Thank you.
Great job, staff. Okay. Any persons requiring further notice of the passing of the bylaw should give their name and full mailing address to the clerk before leaving the meeting. Any persons present who wish to make oral or written submissions should provide the clerk with their name and full mailing address. Also, all persons wishing to address the bylaw should ask their questions through the chair. We will proceed. The clerk will now read any written submissions.
I don't believe there were any, Mayor Rumbos.
Okay, thank you. The planner will now give his report. Good evening, Louis. I'm going to turn it over to you for your report.
Thank you very much, Mayor Rumboats. Good evening, Your Worship, Council. I'd like to keep this brief, recognizing everybody's time is precious. The proposed rezoning, as discussed, was for 7921 Industrial Drive for approximately about an acre piece of property in order to facilitate the development of a car wash, let's call it that, a motor vehicle washing establishment. Bit of a mouthful, let's call it a car wash. So unfortunately, the existing CM zone does not facilitate a car wash under the zoning. And so in order to facilitate the proposed development, we've basically created a special provision to introduce the use and at the same time modify the parking requirements. And the parking requirements currently in the bylaw are a little dated. I think they're very much reflective of a perhaps past standard with car washes where you actually drove out, you still kind of hand dried the car wash, or you still hand dried the car. So a little antiquated. So the applicant proposed a update to the proposed to the parking standards. And so that's supported by a parking brief. So we have the justification of the support behind it, which is in alignment with other municipalities. So other municipalities have a lower standard. This is nothing abnormal, nothing different. The proposed use is in alignment with the other uses in the area. It's an industrial park with a commercial focus as well. And so it's a good fit. The rezoning aligns with the PPS. So the provincial policy statement, it's in alignment with the county official plan, and it's in alignment with the official plan, the township's official plan. And so everything, all the check marks are checked. All the boxes are checked, so it's fine. We see no issues with it. And so we would look forward to moving forward in the process and working through the details as part of the site plan review should council deem the application appropriate at a later point in time this evening. I have nothing else to add, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Hey, we will hear the, is there any questions for the planner tonight? We will hear those in favor of the bylaw first and then hear from those opposed. Anyone would like to speak in favor of the bylaw is welcome to do so now. Members of council may provide any questions or comments about the application. Councillor Morris?
I think this addition of a car wash is going to be an excellent plus for the township and be well used. I support it.
I agree. Councillor White, did you have a comment?
I second what Wayne said. I think it'll be an excellent addition as well.
Yeah. I think everybody agrees with that. I'm just going to end the official part of the meeting. The public meeting is now concluded. Council has 15 days from the meeting to decide whether or not to pass this bylaw. Council's decision will be mailed to those who have requested a copy. Any person or agency may appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal in respect to the bylaw by filing with the clerk of the Township of Warwick no later than 20 days after the day that written notice was given. A notice of appeal must set out the objection to the bylaw and the reasons in support of the objection, plus the applicable fee to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Based on the comments from council, I would suggest, and since we have our applicants online now, that we just go right ahead with a vote on this, if that's okay with staff and council. Councillor Wright?
I'll move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Morris, you'd like to second that?
Yes, I do.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Awesome. I know that this has been a lengthy process for our applicants, and we are really happy to assist in this in any way we can. And we look forward to washing up our cars.
Thank you all for your support. We
Thank you.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And we'll,
Thank you, Your Worship.
no problem. We will move on. We have about 7 minutes before our next delegation time with Intac Insurance. So I think we will finish up our staff reports if we can skip down to those. We are on F, which is the calcium tender for 2022. Do we have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. Any questions, comments, or concerns on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. We will move on to the CN Rail and Township of Warwick, that the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs letter dated December 23rd and correspondence from AMO dated January 1st regarding CN Rail and drainage be received for information, and that the council support and endorse the template letter attached to the agenda. This is something that I believe our council brought forward to AMO and to the ministry. So I was very excited to see this progression. Do we have a mover and a seconder to support that? Councillor Mitchell and Councillor Westgate, any questions or comments? Andrew, I'm sure you were happy to see that support from AMO.
Yes, that was very welcoming. It's nice to see things happening, and I just hope it keeps going, because it's very frustrating.
It really is. That is just one more example of how a delegation can pay off in the long run. It sometimes takes a long time, but it does make a difference when you speak up to our provincial leaders. So is there any other comments or questions on that? All in favor of approving that? That is carried. And Public Works update. Do we have time? We have about 5 minutes. I think we probably have time for the Public Works update. We need a mover and a seconder to have that filed as information. Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. Thank you. And Mr. Maver, do you have anything you'd like to comment on or highlight from that update?
Thank you. Just a couple things. Just wanted to bring to council's attention that currently there's an RFP for engineering services for the intersection of Naboo and Confederation line. So that's just the improvement with turning lanes to that intersection. So that closes tomorrow at 4. And so that's to get the engineering services to design the intersection. And the hope is to build it this year, although with COVID and resources, it's likely going to be 2023. But that's kind of the timeline for that one. The other RFP I'd like to bring the attention to is just the Warwick Cemetery expansion is currently up for tender, and that closes February 22nd. And that's all the, there are a list of all the other capital projects that are going on. So if you've had a chance to read them, but other than that, that's pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you very much for that update. Any questions for Mr. Maver on that report? Councillor Westgate.
I just have one thing I forgot to mention before. There's a shut-off valve in the corner of Wall and Front Street that was knocked off by the snowplow. I believe it's on the shoulder of the road. It's on the north side, the north west side. The top cast part was knocked right off. So the hole is filling in, but I don't think you'll want to do anything until it thaws, but I just want to make you aware of it so we don't lose it altogether.
I'll let Aqua know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments on that report? All in favor of receiving and filing that or approving that? That is carried. Thank you. We have a few committee minutes. The minutes from the special council meeting of January 19th, 2022. Councillor Morris and Councillor Westgate. Any questions or comments on those minutes? Errors or omissions? All in favor of receiving and filing those. Thank you. Minutes of the special council meeting of January 26th, 2022. We need a mover and a seconder to receive and file those. Thank you, Councillor Mitchell and Councillor White. All in favor? That is carried. And the minutes of the special council meeting of February 8th, 2022. Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Westgate. All in favor of receiving and filing those. Thank you. And we will go back up to our delegation time, and we'll give our clerk a minute or two to allow for the delegate to come into the Zoom meeting. And we have Tony Camiso from Intech Insurance. Yep.
Okay, I'll let him in now. I think Tony's joined.
There he is. Good evening, Mr. Camiso. Is that right?
Camiso. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Camiso. Thank you for joining us tonight. I will turn the meeting over to you for your report.
Okay, wonderful. I have to say, first off, thank you very much, everyone, for this opportunity to address you today. Before I begin, I just wanted to wish everyone a happy Valentine's Day. I hope you and your families are safe and healthy and optimistic for 2022. So Madam Mayor, I've had the privilege to address council before quite a few times over the years, mainly on risk management issues, most recently. So I think it's fair to assume that everyone on council is well aware of our company's history, reliability, and services. So I'm going to cut right to the chase and just organize my presentation into two parts. Number one, I want to explain what's going on in the world of municipal insurance, and two, speak to Warwick's specific rate adjustment and changes on your insurance program for this upcoming year. I think it's going to take me about 7 to 8 minutes to get through these points. I want to leave ample time for members of council to ask questions. So I'll start off right off the bat. Why are the municipal insurance rates continuing to skyrocket? And municipalities across Ontario and other parts of Canada are seeing their annual insurance costs increase again. I believe there's two reasons. Number one, the fact that insurance markets are cyclical. So they're in the world of insurance, there's soft markets and hard markets. Soft markets are when insurance companies are literally lined out the door to write your business. And the hard market is very much the opposite. So insurance companies have become very strict on the business they underwrite and for how much they provide that coverage for. Hard markets, from a historical point of view, have occurred once every decade. They last about 3 to 4 years, and then a soft market will come in and really balance things out. We just came out of an unusually long soft market, which ended in 2019. The second reason, which I think is really contributing to these increased costs, are the fact that insurance claims cost a lot more than they did. And this affects all property and casualty insurance companies. Things are costing more, parts, labor, everything in general. And there's this trend that shows that we as a society have become much more litigious and demonstrate less personal accountability, which has resulted in a higher frequency and severity of claims. In response, judges are awarding much more contributory negligence towards municipalities versus plaintiffs. And these awards are primarily driven by the cost to provide future care for significantly injured plaintiffs. Now, municipalities have a very large exposure for this type and size of damage awards and are currently feeling it through the cost of insurance. So the cost to defend these claims is going up. So individual claims are much more complex to defend. They take a lot more time to manage those claims, to investigate them, to hire the experts and legal time involved to process those claims. And again, those rates are increasing as well. The other thing, which I don't think a lot of people are talking about, is the fact that property insurance losses have become much more frequent and severe. And climate change has resulted in a substantial increase in property losses across Canada. Regardless if this has impacted, Warwick directly, the cost for both property insurance and reinsurance rates worldwide have increased. So insurers are statistically seeing more weather-related losses than ever before. And this is a statistic that our president published in a document that they wrote for the Attorney General 2 years ago when we were on the task force for the joint and several liability reform. And this statistic is really scary, but it's something I want to hit home. So 7 of the top 10 most significant weather-related insurance losses have actually happened in the last 10 years. So between 2009 and 2019, we saw weather-related losses across the country average about $1.9 billion annually. These statistics are from the IBC, the Insurance Bureau of Canada. The decades before that, it was from 1980. So from 1983 to 2008, the average yearly total was $422 million. What's interesting is the data we have now over the last 2 years, we have shown, or the IBC has proved, that there's been over $2 billion annually for weather-related losses. And that, Madam Mayor, is unprecedented. The insurance industry has never had to deal with property losses of that magnitude. The point I'm trying to make is that the insurers are still playing catch up. They cannot catch up to the amount of claims that this nation is now seeing based on these latest trends. So moving on to my second point, what does this mean for Warwick? Well, we're seeing a 17% adjustment this year, and double-digit adjustments are happening all across Ontario. I can share with council that the average municipal rate increase for 2022 is actually closer to 23%. And that's just the average, Madam Mayor. So let's remember that municipalities are significantly larger risk than other corporations. here in Warwick, we have $28 million in physical assets that we're insuring, plus 21 licensed vehicles for the road. That's a significant portfolio. Let's remember too that, because Warwick has performed rather well over the years in terms of your claims activity, we were able to secure better rates compared to other municipalities. And I think this goes to show, staff continue to include us on various risk management issues that has resulted in reduced claims activity. And that strategy is working, and Warwick is seeing the benefit of it. And this, Madam Mayor, in my opinion, needs to be acknowledged and congratulated. It's important to remember that it's been 20 years since the insurance industry has seen inflated rates like this. So the best solution going forward is to continue to migrate losses. Again, I stress risk management 101. Please continue to send us agreements or contracts to review. Anytime there's a project, staff need to consider what are the liability implications. Is there an insurance clause within that agreement protecting the municipality? Asking questions like this are very important as it prevents those claims from ever even happening. Of course, our team can review those situations and material and advise, the township on how to proceed. Preventing claims will only help your overall loss ratio, which will make an immediate impact. Council and staff should continue to be risk adverse and don't shy away from asking questions from suppliers or contractors or any other parties that you're entering into any agreements with. Finally here, in terms of specific coverage changes that we're seeing year to year, we've had to apply an annual aggregate on your earthquake and flood coverage on your property policy. We've also had to add deductibles for your earthquake and flood losses, which are applied per premise. And this is something that is industry standard. So we had to apply those restrictions or changes, I should say, across our entire municipal book of business. Cyber-related losses are now excluded across your insurance program. This is because we have a separate cyber insurance policy available to municipalities. And I don't want to get into cyber insurance because I'll need a whole nother delegation, Madam Mayor. It's a whole nother beast or animal that I hope every municipality is at least aware of and planning adequately for it. My final point is I hope that everyone is still taking advantage of our free webinars that we've been providing since the pandemic was declared. Some of we've always participated at every major municipal conference, and we use those opportunities to provide our risk management education sessions in person, and we will do so again once we're able. But for the foreseeable future, please register for those webinars and continue to educate yourselves on how to reduce the claims frequency and severity that we're seeing. So I hit my points, Madam Mayor. I want to leave lots of time for questions or anything like that. So please, I'll hand the mic back over.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Council, do you have any questions, or staff, if you have any questions? Certainly, we were aware that this was coming, and it sounds like it's happening to the private industries as well, across the board. So is there anything that the municipality, other than what you've already mentioned, can do to help reduce our claims? Or I know our staff are doing a fantastic job with making sure everything is accessible. And
great question. And you're right, your staff are doing a great job. And again, I hope I hit that point. I think it's important to remain, to keep the communication open between the municipality and myself, which isn't a problem. I guess all I can really say to improve anything is to just try and educate yourselves. And I know not every webinar or session we do on insurance is exciting or is maybe beneficial for your individual municipality. But if you have the opportunity and you have the time, if you can, just continue to educate yourselves, because the insurance companies want to see that municipalities are making those efforts. So if we see that we have a bunch of people from Warwick signed up for our sessions, that's more proof for me to negotiate even better rates come for your next renewal. And I know you guys are. I know I see the names on the registrations. So please just continue to do that, and hopefully by this time next year, I don't have to come in swinging like I am. So because it's tough and it's affecting everybody. And I want to make that clear. It's not just you guys. I'm having the same conversation with every municipality.
That's good to know, that it does make a difference when we sign up for those presentations as well. I had no idea that was involved. Any other questions today? Seeing none, I'll thank you for your we've got one from Mr. Morris. Thank you.
Yeah, the general liability, does that cover all our township properties, including cemeteries and everything else?
Great question, Counselor. Yes, it applies to any premise you own, rent, lease, or occupy.
Okay, so if the tombstone falls down on somebody, we're covered.
If they decide to sue you for it, it will trigger the policy.
Okay, thank you.
Let's just hope that doesn't happen.
No.
But it's good to know that you are covered for that. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Camiso, for joining us tonight, and happy Valentine's Day to you and your family as well. And have a good evening.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
We were able to get through the rest of the agenda before that delegation, Council, so we do need a motion to move into, Amanda.
Mayor Rondos, I think we missed one set of minutes for approval from Development Committee, February 7th.
You are correct. Thank you for that correction. We need a mover and a seconder, Councillor Mitchell and Councillor Morris. All in favor of that. Thank you for that reminder and correction. If there's no new business, then we will go into closed meeting session. We need a mover and a seconder for that. That is Councillor Mitchell and Councillor Morris. Thank you. All in favor? That is carried. For those joining us on YouTube, we thank you for your attendance and we wish you a happy Valentine's Day from all of council and staff, and have a good